When you're out in the field, there are really only three questions that matter. Where am I? Where am I going? And what's it actually look like between here and there? Today, we're going to break down the single most important tool for answering all of them, the military map. And look, this isn't just theory. This is the absolute foundation of a life-saving skill. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? We're not talking about some dusty classroom exercise here. This is all about immediate, practical, real-world application. It's a skill that tells a leader what to do, keeps a team out of harm's way, and ultimately, it's what gives one force that critical edge over another. It's really the art of turning simple ink on a page into total dominance on the battlefield. All right, so we get why it's so crucial. Now, let's actually dig in. To read a map, you first got to know what it is you're holding. So let's start with the absolute basics from the ground up. This definition looks simple, but it is so powerful. A map is not a picture. It's a model. And the most important word right here is scaled. That means there's a direct, unbroken mathematical link between every single mark on this sheet of paper and a real feature out there on the ground. You could almost say it's the world, but written in code. And this is the kind of information that code translates for you. A map takes our messy, three-dimensional world with all its forests and roads and giant hills, and it boils it all down to simple symbols you can read in a heartbeat. It literally makes the complex simple, which is exactly what you need to make fast life-or-death decisions. Now, you are going to run into different maps for different missions. Some, like topographical maps, are all about the physical terrain, the hills and valleys. Others might show you where friendly and enemy units are. But listen, don't get hung up on the differences just yet. The core skills we're learning today, they are the universal key to understanding every single one of them. So how do we unlock them? Well, the best way to think about a map is to see it as its own language. Seriously, it has its own rules, its own symbols, its own structure, a kind of grammar, if you will. And once you become fluent, you're not just looking at a bunch of lines anymore. You are literally reading the story of the landscape itself. And this is the vocabulary of that language. Now, we could spend hours on every single one of these. But if you're just starting out, there are really only two you need to master. They are the absolute bedrock for everything else. So today, we are going to zero in on just two, scale and contours. Let's kick things off with scale, and I want to be really clear about this. If you don't get scale, you don't get the map, period. It's the essential link, the bridge that connects the piece of paper in your hand to the actual world under your feet. It's what makes this thing a tool instead of just some abstract drawing. So what is it, really? At its heart, it's just a simple ratio. Think of it as the map's promise to you. The map is saying, hey, for every inch you measure on me, that represents this many inches out there on the real ground. It's a direct, constant relationship. You're going to see this a lot, 1 to 50,000. It's a pretty standard scale for military maps. And I know it just looks like simple math, but this single ratio is the key that unlocks the map's true power. And here's what that actually means in the real world. If you were to take a ruler and measure just 1 little centimeter on your map, that 1 centimeter corresponds to 50,000 centimeters, or half a kilometer, out on the actual ground. And just like that, with that one little piece of information, you now have the power to figure out travel times, plan your logistics, and even calculate engagement ranges. Okay, so scale gives us distance, that's length and width, right? 2 dimensions. But battlefields aren't flat, they are 3-dimensional. They've got mountains and valleys and some seriously deadly slopes. So how on earth does a flat piece of paper show you elevation? Well, the answer is these elegant little lines called contours. This is where a good map becomes pure genius. Each one of these lines connects points that are at the exact same height above sea level. So imagine you're actually walking along one of these contour lines on a real hillside. You wouldn't be climbing up, and you wouldn't be going down. You'd be walking a perfectly flat path that just wraps around the hill. And here's the trick. The spacing between these lines tells you everything you need to know. When you see the lines are all bunched up, packed really close together, that means you're gaining a lot of height over a very short distance. That's a steep climb, maybe even a cliff. But what if they're spread really far apart? That means the ground is rising gently, nice and gradual. And there you have it. You've just learned to see a 3D landscape on a 2D surface. So let's put it all together. Scale gives you the how far, contours give you the how high and how steep. By mastering just these two fundamental ideas, you totally transform a map from what looks like a confusing web of lines into a three-dimensional model of the battlefield that you can hold right in your hands. So we've covered the basics, the language of the map. But, knowledge is only half the battle. The real question is one of trust. When it really matters, when everything is on the line, could you bet your mission and the safety of your team on your ability to read these lines correctly? Because that is what turns this skill into an art.